I am Athena Sinclair. I am 34. 3 months ago, I flew 18 hours to attend my sister's wedding. When I arrived at the venue, my own parents blocked the entrance and told me to leave. Only family is allowed. My mom said, "You weren't invited." I stood there in the dress I'd picked out 2 months earlier, holding the gift I'd wrapped the night before on my hotel bed, and watched my mother's face show. No guilt. No regret. Just a slamming door. I signed every single vendor contract for that ceremony. Every last one. My name. My credit card. I paid the deposit months ago and never thought twice about it. 3 days later, she called. Not to say sorry. She called about a bill. $38,000. And what I told her next, she never saw coming. Before I get to that, please hit like and subscribe, only if you truly dig this revenge story. Plus, leave your location and local time below. I want to know where you are listening from. Now, let me take you back to last November, the day my sister announced her engagement. A Tuesday night in London, cold rain hitting my apartment window. My phone buzzed with a call from Brooke, my younger sister, age 26, freshly graduated, still living 10 minutes from our parents in Cedar Bluff, Tennessee. I answered. Brooke's face filled the screen, beaming. Behind her, I saw our mother, Deanne. I was busy in the kitchen, tidying up the counters, just organizing the space. "I'm engaged," Brooke squealed, showing off her ring. Garrett popped the question at the vineyard. It was perfect. Pure joy swelled in my chest for her. "Brooke, that is incredible news. Congratulations." "Thanks." Garrett's family is thrilled. The Caldwells offered their barn for the venue. Can you believe it? I knew the Caldwells. Everyone in Cedar Bluff did. They owned the biggest car dealership chain in 3 counties. Garrett Caldwell was the youngest son, handsome, polite, and loaded. "Mom, say hi to Athena," Brooke said, angling the phone screen. Diane leaned into view. She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. "Hi, honey. Exciting news." "Right, it really is," I replied. "I'll start checking flights." "When is the big day?" A silence followed. Diane looked at Brooke, then back at me. "Oh, don't waste a fortune on a day eyes. Flight. It is going to be a small wedding." "Mom, it is Brooke's wedding. I am absolutely coming." "Well, we will see." Diane stiffened. "Anyway, we have plenty of planning to do. I will let Brooke tell you." She vanished from the camera view. Brooke kept talking for 10 more minutes about flowers and color schemes. I listened, smiled, and took notes. But something sat heavy in my gut. That was my first excuse in 2 years to go home. I should have paid more attention to how hard my mother was fighting to keep me away. 2 weeks later, Diane called. Not Brooke, just Diane. On a Wednesday afternoon, which morning in Tennessee. And it hit me. I'd been stewing over this since I woke up. "Athena, we need to have a practical conversation." "Okay. The venue needs a credit card on file to secure the booking. Your dad and I. Well, our credit score is shot after that refinance. And Brooke just graduated. She lacks the credit history." I leaned back. I knew exactly where this conversation was heading. The caterer needs it too. She pressed on. Same for the florist and photographer. 4 contracts total. We just need your solid credit to sign. It would be a massive favor for your sister. How much cash are we talking? $41,000 total. But you only put down $3,500 now. The rest hits the card after the wedding. $41,000. Signed by me. Mom. That is a mountain of money. It is not your money. Atena. It is just your signature on the forms. We will pay it off. I promise I will make sure every cent is covered. I had heard that promise before, at 22. I co-signed a car loan for my father. It took me 3 years to scrub that from my credit report. At 28, I wired Diane $4,000 for a plumbing crisis that actually turned out to be Brooke's college tuition. But this was my sister's big day. And I was the big sister. The one with the steady job, the stellar credit rating, the London paycheck. Fine. Send the contracts over. I convinced myself, this is just what family does. I signed every single document that week without checking the fine print twice. Over the next 3 months, the wedding took shape, and I watched it all from the sidelines. Brooke started a group chat. She called it the Caldwell Wedding Crew. She never added me. I only knew because she accidentally forwarded a message meant for the group, a photo of bridesmaid dresses. The caption said, "Vote. Ladies." Clearly. I wasn't one of the ladies. I called Brooke twice. Asked about the code. Seating. Or if she needed a toast. She said she'd get back to me. The second time, she ghosted me. Sent a text an hour later instead. Just. Super busy with wedding planning. Talk soon. I called Diane to offer my help. She just told me, everything is handled. Don't you worry about a thing. Honey, I never got a formal invite. Not on paper. Not through email. I told myself that was fine. I was her sister. After all, you don't invite your own blood. She is family. She is already on the guest list. Or so I thought. 2 weeks out, Brooke posted on Instagram. Rehearsal dinner. Cedar Bluff. Brooke in white. Surrounded by bridesmaids. Diane beaming right next to her. The caption read, "My whole family. My whole world." I stared at that picture for 11 minutes. I counted. I wasn't in the frame. I wasn't even invited to the dinner. I almost called to demand why. Almost. Maybe it was just the wedding party. Maybe they assumed I couldn't make it. Maybe I was just overthinking it. Just being sensitive. I set my alarm for the next morning. I still had a flight to catch. A full week of vacation. I only get 20 days a year. And I burned 5 of them on this trip. My flights. London to Chicago. Chicago to Nashville. Cost $1,400. The hotel in Cedar Bluff. 4 nights at the only decent place in town. $680. Brooke's wedding gift. A premium knife set she mentioned wanting during a random call months ago. $720. Total cash burned before I even touched Tennessee soil. $2,800. On the first leg of the flight. Somewhere over the Atlantic. I grabbed my phone and pulled up my notes. I had been drafting a toast for weeks. Nothing long. Maybe 2 minutes? I wanted to share how Brooke used to make me play wedding with her stuffed animals when we were 5. How she always forced me into the role of the priest. Never the bride. I thought it was funny. I figured people would get a kick out of it. I rehearsed it twice with my earbuds in. Whispering into my scarf so the guy in seat 14C wouldn't think I'd snapped. When we landed in Chicago for the layover, I texted Diane. Just landed in Chicago. 1 more flight. Can't wait to see everyone. Silence for 40 minutes. Then, just before boarding the Nashville connection, "Okay. Busy. See you tomorrow." 5 words. No exclamation point. No. Safe travels. No, we are excited. I stared at the screen while the gate agent called my group to board. I almost screenshotted it to send to my friend Leah back home with the caption, "Is this weird, or am I losing it?" But I didn't. I stashed my phone, boarded the plane, and told myself everything would be fine. 18 hours later, I finally made it. 5 days ago, I checked into the Magnolia Inn at 9:30 on a Friday night. The desk clerk beamed at me and asked if I was here for the big Caldwell Sinclair wedding. Clearly, this whole town was buzzing. He muttered, "Yes." She gushed, "How lovely. You must be close with the family." I replied, "Something like that." The room was tiny but spotless. I hung my dress in the closet, a deep navy piece I grabbed from a boutique in Covent Garden. I placed the wrapped knife set on the desk, leaned my phone against the lamp, and dialed Brooke. 4 rings later, it went to voicemail. I texted Diane. Checked in. "What time do you need me at the venue tomorrow?" 1 hour later. "Ceremony at 2 p.m. That was it. No invite to show up early. No offer to grab breakfast. No mention that my father actually wanted to see me. I sat on the bed's edge and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I had traveled 18 hours, spent nearly $3,000, signed $41,000 in contracts, and my mother could not spare more than 2 words for me. The last time I visited Tennessee was 2 years ago for my grandmother's funeral. Diane barely spoke to me then either. She spent the whole service whispering to Brooke and laughing with neighbors. During the reception, some guest asked Diane how many kids she had. She said, "Just the one." Brooke. I was standing 6 feet away holding a plate of potato salad. I pressed my dress that night like I was prepping for a war. Interview in a way. I was auditioning to stay part of my own family. I set my alarm for 8 and clicked off the lights. Sleep wouldn't come. The Magnolia Inn had paper-thin walls, and the couple next door was blasting a game show. But that wasn't why I was awake. It was the math. $2,800 for this trip. $38,000 still pending on my credit card. 6 years of sending cash home every time Diane called with some new crisis. The water heater. Insurance for Brooke's car. The property tax gap. I never added it all up. I was terrified to, but lying there in the dark, I did something much worse. I calculated the cost of something else. The calls that never happened. The birthdays where Diane texted HBD at 11 p.m. Or just plain forgot. The Christmas I tried to FaceTime and nobody answered because they were at the Hendersons' holiday party and hadn't even mentioned it. The graduation photos on Diane's mantle. 3 of Brooke. And 0 of me. If I kept going like this, kept paying and showing up and acting like the silence didn't sting, what would I lose? Not money. I would lose myself. I would become the woman who buys her own seat at Thanksgiving and still gets dumped at the kids' table. The woman who writes the checks and gets the footnotes. But tonight, I chose to believe. Just one more time. Maybe tomorrow would finally be different. Maybe Diane was just stressed about the wedding. Maybe Brooke was overwhelmed with all the final details. Maybe when I walked in tomorrow, my mother would embrace me and say, "I am so glad you are here." Maybe. I set my alarm and told myself, this is the last time I show up hoping for something they have never once offered freely. Tomorrow, I would find out if hope was actually enough. I closed my eyes. Sleep came slow and thin. Saturday, 1:45 in the afternoon. Meadow Creek Barn sat on 12 acres of rolling pasture right outside Cedar Bluff. White fences. Fairy lights glowing between the oak trees. A gravel path lined with mason jars and wildflowers leading to the entrance. It looked like a magazine spread. I parked my rental car at the far end of the lot. 30 or 40 vehicles were already there. Pickup trucks. Sedans. A few luxury SUVs that screamed Caldwell money. Guests drifted toward the barn in groups. Clutching programs and adjusting their hats. I smoothed my dress, grabbed the gift box, and marched toward the entrance. My heels sank deep into the gravel. The air smelled like fresh grass and barbecue smoke drifting from somewhere behind the barn. I spotted my father first. Frank stood near the barn doors in a cheap suit that did not quite fit across his shoulders. He was shaking hands with an older man I did not recognize. Probably someone from the Caldwell side. When Frank looked up and saw me, his face shifted. That polite smile vanished. His eyes went wide, then narrow, then staring at his shoes. No wave. He didn't walk my way. He turned and went inside. I kept walking. 15 yards from the entrance. 10. 5. The double doors swung open, and my mother stepped out. Diane wore a fancy silk dress in champagne. Her hair was done. Her makeup was flawless. Her jaw was set like solid concrete. She blocked my path completely. Hands clasped tight. Not open. Not welcoming. Just a wall. Athena. Her voice was low. Cold. Hi. Mom? I made it. No hug. No offer to move. What are you doing here? I am here for the wedding. Mom? You need to leave. Now? Her words hit me like a slap. I just blinked. The gift box suddenly felt heavy in my hands. Would I flew 18 hours? Lower your voice. Her eyes flicked toward the guests behind me. People are watching. Mom? I am your daughter. Diane stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same Estee Lauder scent from my entire life. Her voice dropped to a whisper that cut deeper than any scream. Only family is allowed in. You were not invited. I stood there. Gravel shifted under my heels. A couple in their 60s walked past. Glancing our way, that woman offered a polite smile. Diane smiled back. The second they passed. Her face turned to stone. Not invited? I asked. I signed every single contract for this wedding. I paid the full deposit. This isn't about money. It is about what is actually appropriate. Appropriate, Athena. Please, do not make a scene. Behind her, through the half-open barn door, I spotted white chairs lined up in perfect rows. Eucalyptus garlands hung from the rafters, a string quartet tuned up, right near the altar. Everything I had funded with my own signature. Frank appeared in the doorway. He looked at Diane, then at me, then down at the dirt. He jammed his hands into his pockets and said nothing. Absolutely nothing. From inside, a woman's voice called out. Warm, southern, and sharp. Diane. Who is that? Is everything all right? I watched Diane straighten her spine. I saw her paint on a fake smile before. She turned halfway toward the voice. And that voice, I realized in about 3 seconds, belonged to Margaret Caldwell, the groom's mother, the woman who was told my mother only had one daughter. Margaret Caldwell stepped through the barn doors in lavender silk and pearls. She was tall, silver-haired, the kind of woman who runs the church auction and the county fundraiser and still finds time to arrange her own floral centerpieces. She walked like someone who had never been embarrassed in public. Not even once. Diane, is everything okay out there? Margaret's gaze landed on me. She smiled. Bright. Expectant. Diane flipped a switch. Her tone shifted to honey sweet. Oh. It's nothing. Margaret. Just a distant relative who hit the wrong venue. Happens at these big events. Distant relative. She snapped it out while staring right at me. Margaret studied my face. Oh. I thought you only had one daughter. Diane. The silence hung for 2 seconds. It felt like 20. Diane let out a bright, brittle laugh. I do. Just a cousin from out of town. She is a bit confused about the schedule. Margaret nodded, glanced at me once more, then touched Diane's arm. Well, tell her the ceremony starts in 10 minutes. We should head in. Margaret walked back inside. The barn doors swung shut behind her. I locked eyes with my mother. Pur silence. In hergaze. There was no guilt. No shame. Not a flicker of, I am sorry, I had no choice. Just fear. Rough. Cornered animal fear. The kind that hits when a lie you have been feeding for months starts to choke you. A cousin, I said. Athena. Please. You told them you only have one daughter. It is complicated. You would not understand. How long? How long have you been telling people I do not exist? She stayed silent. She looked toward the parking lot, willing me to vanish. That was when it clicked. She did not forget to invite me. She erased me. And she had been doing it for years. Every muscle in my body craved to walk through those doors, to stand in the middle of the ceremony, loud enough for Margaret and Garrett and every guest in the barn to hear, my name is Athena Sinclair. I am Diane's eldest daughter. I paid for every flower, every plate, and every note that string quartet is playing. I didn't. I studied the barn, the fairy lights, the garlands, the warm, golden glow through the windows. I looked at my mother still standing in my path like a sentry. I spotted my father's shadow just inside the doorway, shoulders hunched, hands buried deep in his pockets. And I decided. I crouched down and placed the gift box on the cold stone step. Gently, like it mattered. Keep the gift. I said, it's for Brooke. Diane's shoulders dropped half an inch. Pure relief. She thought it was over. Thank you. Athena. This is really for the don't not slice, indescriptor, end of really 19. I held up one hand. Don't explain. Don't justify. I heard you. I heard every single word. I turned and marched back down the gravel path, past the mason jars, past the couples, still arriving, holding hands, laughing about the summer heat, past my rental car, and then inside it. I opened the door, sat, and slammed it shut. Then I cried. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind where your chest shakes but your mouth stays shut. Because even alone in a parking lot, you have been trained not to make a scene. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, through the open windows. I heard the string quartet start playing Pachelbel. The ceremony was beginning. I started the engine and peeled out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, Meadow Creek Barn shrank to a tiny spark. I didn't slam one door. I didn't raise my voice once. I just left. And for the first time, walking away felt like the strongest move I ever made. Now, I know many of you are thinking, Athena, why didn't you just say it? Right there, in front of everyone. Trust me. I grilled myself on that whole drive back to the hotel. But let me ask you this. If your mother looked you dead in the eye and called you a cousin in front of a total stranger, what would you do? Drop your take in the comments. And if this story hits close to something real for you, smash that like button. It helps more than you might guess. Now, back to the mess. I drove back to the Magnolia Inn on autopilot. The roads were dead. Everyone in Cedar Bluff was at the wedding. Apparently, inside my room, I ditched my heels and sank onto the bed, still in my dress. Mascara running. Hands shaking. The toast I drafted was still open on my phone. I closed it without reading a word. Then I grabbed my laptop. 4 emails sat in my inbox from the last 2 weeks. Confirmations from vendors, all addressed to me as the contract holder. I had skimmed them before. Now, I read every line. Meadow Creek Barn. Contract holder. Atina Sinclair. Deposit paid. $1,200. Remaining balance. $14,800. Due within 5 business days post-event. Southern Comfort Catering. Contract holder. Atina Sinclair. Deposit paid. $900. Balance remaining. $12,600. Due 5 business days after the event. Bluebonnet Floral Design Contract. Holder. Atina Sinclair. Deposit paid. $800. Balance remaining. $6,200. Whitaker Photography. Contract holder. Atina Sinclair. Deposit paid. $600. Balance remaining. $4,400. I scrolled through each one. My name. My card. My signature. All scanned into PDFs. Every single contract was structured. The Rentel Realf. Same. Deposit first. Balance after. Total deposits already paid. $3,500. Gone. Total outstanding balance. $38,000. I closed the laptop. Satt still. The barn was probably mid-party by now. Toasts. Diane hugging Brooke. Garrett spinning his bride on the dance floor. The Caldwells clinking glasses with their new in-laws. All of it happening under contracts signed by someone they just called a cousin. I made no calls that night. I sent no emails. I just sat on that hotel bed letting the numbers burn in my head. $38,000. My name? Their party. My phone rang at 9:47. The ID read, Aunt Ruth. Ruth Mercer. My mother's older sister. 62. Retired school principal. The kind of woman who says exactly what she thinks and has never once apologized for it. Diane called her difficult. Everyone else called her honest. Atina. Where are you? I did not see you at the wedding. I was there. Aunt Ruth. I just did not make it inside. What do you mean you didn't get inside? I told her everything. The blocked entrance. That hushed whisper. Only family. The word cousin. Margaret Caldwell asking. Diane answering. Silence on the line. A long one. I could hear Ruth breathing. Slow. Deliberate. The way she does when she's deciding just how furious to get. She claimed you do not exist. Ruth's voice was flat. Controlled. Like a kettle just about to whistle. She said she only has one daughter. Lord have mercy. A pause. Atina. Listen. At the wedding reception, your mother stood up for the toast and said, and I am quoting her, our little family, Frank, myself, and our Brooke. She introduced the Sinclairs like that. I sat there and thought it was odd. I almost spoke up. I wish I had. It is not your fault. Aunt Ruth. No. It is not. It is Diane's. And she is going to hear about it. Another pause. Sharper now. Atina. Those wedding vendor contracts. Whose name are they under mine? All of them. Every single one. Ruth went quiet again. When she spoke, her voice had shifted. Still angry, but with a cold edge of something harder underneath. Something calculated. Then you listen to me. Honey, your mama told a room full of people you do not exist. You do not owe that room a single act. Et son. Sunday morning. I woke up to an Instagram alert. Brooke uploaded a wedding photo carousel. 14 shots total. The opening frame caught them at the altar. Brooke in lace. Garrett in charcoal. The barn bathed in gold. Lighting up the background. Next was the family portrait. Frank, Diane, Brooke, Garrett, Margaret, and Richard Caldwell. 6 people in the frame. 2 clans merging. And 1 family missing a daughter. The caption read, "Surrounded by everyone who matters. #Caldwell forever." I read that line 3 times. Then I checked my inbox. The venue invoice arrived overnight. Automated. Cheery. Featuring a small barn logo. "Thank you for choosing Meadow Creek Barn. $14,800 due this Thursday, March 6th. Below that, bills from the caterer, the florist, and the photographer. All timestamped Saturday night. All billed to Athena Sinclair, all with 5-day deadlines. $38,000. Due Thursday. I stared at the Instagram post once more. Everyone who matters. Then I looked at the bills again. Something shifted inside. No snap. No sudden fury. No dramatic exit. It was quieter. Like a deadbolt turning. Like a door that had been jammed for years finally clicking open. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That would come later. In waves. In the middle of the night. In the shower. During meetings I just could not focus on. But right then, in that hotel room on a Sunday morning in Cedar Bluff, Tennessee, I felt something far simpler. Clarity. Middle of the night. Still in the shower. During meetings, I just couldn't focus on. Right now. Stuck in that hotel room on a Sunday morning in Cedar Bluff, Tennessee. I finally felt something simpler. Pure clarity. I was the only one paying for this wedding. I was the only one left out of the photos. And I was the only one getting invoices for a party I had been kicked out of. Something had to give. And it was not going to be me. Not this time. Sunday afternoon. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from Brooke. Not a call. She did not actually try to talk to me. She just left a message like checking off a chore. I hit play. "Hey Athena. So, the wedding was amazing. Literally perfect. That barn looked incredible. And Garrett family was so sweet. Anyway, sorry, things were kind of weird yesterday. Mom said it was for the best. And honestly, she was right. It would have been too much to explain. But I wanted to say thanks for handling the vendors. Seriously. You are the best big sis. Let us catch up soon. Okay. Love you." I listened to it twice. Sorry, things were kind of weird. Not. I am sorry, Mom. Turned you away at the door. Not. I should have stood up for you. Not. I had no idea. Or, I would have fought for you. Mom said it was for the best. Brooke knew. She knew before the wedding. She knew Diane planned to turn me away. And she signed off on it. She probably helped plan the betrayal. And that last line, "You are the best big sis." I used to love hearing that. It made me feel valued. Like all those sacrifices actually meant something. But sitting in that hotel room, mascara from yesterday still faintly smudged on the pillowcase. I heard it differently. "I have fought for you." Mom said it was for the best. Brooke knew. She knew way before the wedding. She knew Diane was going to shut me out, and she signed off on it. She probably helped plan the whole thing. And then, that final line, "You're the best big sister." I used to love hearing that. It made me feel special. Like all the sacrifices actually meant something. But sitting in that hotel room, mascara from yesterday still faintly smudged on the pillow. I heard it differently. She only uses that tone when she needs a favor. Only when she wants something. Something. I ignored the call. Didn't send a text back. I tossed my phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. The bills were due Thursday. My family just told 120 people I didn't exist. Then my sister left me a message. A classic. Thanks for paying. I had 4 days to figure out who I was going to be. Sunday night. The Magnolia Inn. That loud couple from next door finally cleared out. The hallway was graveyard quiet. I sat on the bed with my laptop open, fingers hovering over the search bar. Am I legally stuck with vendor contracts I signed for someone else's wedding event? The results were unanimous. The person named on the contract holds the legal burden. But the person named on the Plaisanes in a V-N contract also holds the power. I could approve payment. Or block it. I could redirect every invoice to the people who actually enjoyed the services. I grabbed my phone and called Meadow Creek Barn. 3 rings. Meadow Creek. This is Julie. Hi. Julie. This is Athena Sinclair. I am the contract holder for the Caldwell Sinclair event from this past Saturday. Oh. Yes. Miss Sinclair. A lovely day. How can I help you? I am calling to tell you I will not be authorizing the final payment on this contract. I wasn't at the event. And I am formally requesting that the balance be redirected to them. The event hosts. A long pause. Look. I need to loop in my manager. But first, is there some sort of dispute? No dispute. I simply won't authorize this payment. The invoice belongs to the Sinclair family out in Cedar Bluff. Julie took my email, confirmed the request, and promised a follow-up Monday. He hung up and dialed the caterer. Same script. Same calm tone. Same result. Then the florist. And then the photographer. 4 calls. 12 minutes total. I didn't yell. I didn't make threats. I didn't explain myself. I just said one word over and over. Cool and firm. No. Once finished, I shut my laptop, brushed my teeth, and actually slept soundly for the first time in 2 days. Monday morning arrived. I changed my flight. Instead of staying until Wednesday like I planned, I grabbed the first seat I could find back to London. A 6 a.m. flight out through Atlanta. I packed in 10 flat minutes. Checked out of the Magnolia Inn before the sun was up. The same clerk was working the desk. She smiled and asked, "How was the wedding? Quite memorable?" I said, "The drive to Nashville took 2 hours. On the way, I passed through Cedar Bluff just one last time. Main Street was dead quiet. The diner, the hardware store, the Baptist church where I was baptized at 12. I drove past my childhood home. The porch light was still burning. I could practically see the scene inside. Diane at the table with her coffee, still riding the high of the reception. Frank sat there reading the paper. The house was overflowing with leftover wedding cake and stacks of congratulations cards. My name didn't appear once. When I was 10, Diane told me, "Athena, you are the big sister. You need to be strong for Brooke." I had been strong for 24 years. I stayed strong through Brooke's childhood illness. That meningitis scare that completely wrecked our family dynamic. I stayed strong through every financial nightmare, every ignored call. Every holiday I spent alone in London, pretending the time difference was the reason. Not the distance. I hit the highway and didn't glance back. 18 hours later, I landed at Heathrow. Gray skies. Drizzle. The most beautiful sight I had ever seen. I turned on my phone in the arrivals hall. No missed calls. New texts. Nobody in Cedar Bluff had noticed I was gone or cared to check. But they would notice soon. The vendors would start calling by Tuesday. The invoices would arrive by Wednesday. And then my phone would explode. I knew it. Tuesday, 3 p.m. London time, 9 a.m. Tennessee. My phone rang. Mom calling. I let it ring 3 times. Then I answered, Athena. Hi. Honey. Sweet. Airy. That voice she uses when she wants a favor. How was your flight home? Fine. Good? Good. Listen. I just got the strangest call from the venue. They said you canceled your payment authorization. The bill is $38,000. How are we handling this? We are not handling it. Mom. You are. A heavy beat of silence. Excuse me, I pulled my access because I am not taking the fall for an event I wasn't invited to. Athena. Stop being so dramatic. You know this was just a simple misunderstanding. We can talk this through. You told Margaret Caldwell I was just a distant relative. You told her you only have one daughter. That is not a misunderstanding. Mom? That is a choice. The silence stretched. I heard her breathing shift, that fake sweetness completely evaporating. After everything I have done for you. She snapped. This is how you repay me. You raised me. I am grateful for that. But you stood in front of your daughter and told a stranger she does not exist. Both of those things are true. You are blowing this way out of proportion. $38,000. That is the proportion. Your father is stressed. His blood pressure is high. If something happens to him, that is on you. Dad stood right there and said nothing. He made his choice. 2. Silence. I heard her swallow hard. You said I was not family. I said, so? The family bill is the family's responsibility. The line went dead. She hung up. No, goodbye. New argument. Just a sharp click and total silence. I dropped my phone on the kitchen counter and stared at it. My hands were steady. My pulse was perfectly normal. And the apartment was quiet, really. Honestly quiet for the first time in months. She phoned back 40 minutes later. A totally different tone. Zero honey. No sweetness. Just pure rage. Do you have any clue what you've done? I do. The venue is hitting me up. The caterer, too. They are blowing up my phone. Invoices are hitting my inbox with your name scratched out and mine scrawled over it. You have any idea how humiliating that feels? I imagine it hurts just as much as being labeled a cousin at your own sister's wedding day. That is not the same thing. You are right. Yours cost $38,000. I raised you. I fed you. I drove you to school every single day for 12 years. And now, because of one tiny little misunderstanding, you're going to bankrupt your own flesh and blood. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Fine. Fine. Athena. You want to play this game. I will tell everyone. I will tell the whole town what kind of daughter deserts her family over some money. Go right ahead. I'd rather be the girl you trash talk than the daughter you pretend simply doesn't exist. That shut her up. I heard her catch her breath. Sharp. Involuntary. Like she'd stepped into icy water. You don't mean that, she said, sounding much smaller now. I really do. Another long pause. Then, the final weapon. The one she always keeps in her back pocket. Your father could have a heart attack from this. If he ends up in the hospital, his blood is on your hands. There it was. The trump card. Dad's health. The classic guilt trip. She finally threw it. It started when I moved to London. When I skipped Thanksgiving. When I finally stopped sending money without being asked. Dad's health is between him and his doctor. I said. Not me and my credit card. She hung up again. This time, I didn't stare at the phone. I put the kettle on and brewed a cup of tea. By Wednesday, Diane had activated what I called the family phone tree. Every branch. Every twig. Brooke called first, crying. That big. Messu. theatrical kind she has perfected since childhood. Athena. Please. Garrett and I just got married. We do not have $38,000. If you do not pay, we have to. We are starting our lives together. And you are ruining it. Brooke. Did you know Mom told the Caldwells I do not exist? A sniffle. A pause. I mean, she said it would be easier that way. With the Caldwells. You know, they are traditional. And having a daughter overseas who is not married, and it was easier. It was not personal. Athena. It was just simpler. You knew before the wedding. I did not think they would actually turn you away. But you did not stop them. Silence. More sniffing. Then, can we please just focus on the bill? Garrett's parents are asking questions. Then maybe it is time someone gave them honest answers. She hung up. Frank called that afternoon. My father almost never calls. He emails once in a while. Short, factual messages about weather or just the football scores. Hearing his voice on the phone hit different, like finding an old tool you forgot you even had. Athena. Your mother is so upset right now. I know. Can you be flexible on this? For the sake of the family, Dad. Did you even know? She told everyone. I am not your daughter. A long, tired sigh. The sound of a man who spent 35 years choosing the path of least resistance. That is not exactly how it went down. Were you there when she called me a distant relative? Right to my face. Silence. Then, a sharp click. He hung up on me. Every single one of them just clicks off, the second things get real. I am starting to see a pattern here. And it looks a lot like a family that would rather lie than face reality. Aunt Ruth never waits for permission. She never has. Thursday morning. The same day those vendor invoices were due, Ruth grabbed her phone and called Margaret Caldwell directly. She snagged the number from the wedding program she kept in her purse. Classic Ruth. I was not even there. Ruth filled me in afterward. And she did not leave a single thing out. Margaret. This is Ruth Mercer. I am Diane Sinclair's older sister. We met for a moment at the reception. Oh. Yes. Ruth. Lovely to hear from you. I am calling because there is something you need to know. Diane has 2 daughters. Not one. Tful. The older one is Athena. She is 34. Lives in London. And works in tech. She is the one who signed every vendor contract for that wedding. Every last one of them. And on Saturday. Diane stopped her at the front door and ordered her to leave. Ruth said. The silence on Margaret's end lasted a full 10 seconds. I beg your pardon, Margaret asked. The woman Diane introduced as a distant relative was actually her firstborn daughter. Athena flew 18 hours to be there. She covered the deposit out of her own pocket. And Diane turned her away because she had told your family the Sinclairs only had one child. Margaret's voice went cold. Itze. The kind of cold that comes from a woman who prides herself on knowing exactly who she is doing business with. Why would Diane do that? You would have to ask her. But I can tell you this, that girl flew 18 hours. Signed every check. And got treated like a stranger at the door. And she still did not make a scene. That is more grace than my sister ever deserved. Ruth said Margaret thanked her. Said she had to make some calls. And hung up. The fuse was lit. And Cedar Bluff is a very small town. I did not ask Aunt Ruth to make that call. But when she told me she had, I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. I felt seen. For the first time, someone in my family said it out loud. What happened to you was wrong. I want to ask you something. Has anyone ever been that person for you? The one who broke the silence when no one else would? Or are you still waiting? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe if you want to hear how this story ends. Back to the story. Thursday afternoon. I sat at my desk in my London flat, with a hot cup of tea and methodically started closing every single account. I emailed every vendor, Meadow Creek Barn, Southern Comfort Catering, Blue Bonnet Floral, and Whitaker Photography. The message was the same for all four, drafted with the sharp precision of someone who writes technical documentation for a living. Dear vendor, this is formal notice that I, Atina St. Clair, the contract holder, no longer authorize any more charges to my personal credit card. I am now requesting that all outstanding bills be redirected to the Sinclair family of Cedar Bluff, Tennessee. Please confirm you received this. Regards, Atina St. Clair. 4 emails sent. 4 confirmations within 60 minutes. The vendors were polite, professional, and clearly not surprised. Julie from Meadow Creek even replied, Understood. Ms. St. Clair. We have updated our records. I called my bank, killed the card tied to the contracts, and ordered a replacement. $38,000 in charges would now head directly to the people who planned the party. The $3,500 deposits were gone, long gone and non-refundable. I accepted the loss, adding in my travel costs, the flights, the hotel, and the gift. I was out $6,300. I stared at that number. $6,300, the price of learning I was never going to be enough for them. That no amount of signing, paying, flying, or showing up would ever earn me a seat at a table they built without a chair for me. A table they built without a chair for me. Me. $6,300. Honestly, that was a bargain. I shut my laptop, washed my mug, and strolled along the Thames. The river looked gray. The air felt sharp. And for the first time in years, I felt like I owed nothing to anyone. Friday morning. One last task. I opened a new email. Recipients Diane Sinclair, Frank Sinclair, and Brooke Caldwell. I wrote a draft, then deleted it. Wrote it again. Too emotional. Deleted. Third attempt. Clean. Direct. No words I did not need. Diane, Frank, and Brooke. I have officially pulled my payment authorization from all vendor contracts tied to the wedding. The remaining balance of $38,000 is now your responsibility as the event hosts. I will not be discussing this further. I wish Brooke and Garrett a happy marriage. From now on, do not contact me about money. If you want a relationship with me, it begins with honesty. Not invoices. Athena. I read it 4 times. Checked for typos. Checked the tone. Made sure it was nothing that could be called petty, vindictive, or cruel. It wasn't. It was a boundary. Clean as a line on a map. I hit send. Then I shut the laptop, started the kettle, and stood by the window. My apartment overlooks a small courtyard where a tree drops its leaves all over the neighbor's bike. It is not much, but it is mine. I pay the rent. I chose the curtains. Not one soul here has ever told me I don't belong. For months, maybe years, I carried a heavy weight. It was a burden I couldn't even name. The constant mental math. Am I doing enough? Am I giving enough of myself? If I sent more cash, called more often, I flew home just one more time, would they finally see me? Standing in my kitchen, sipping a cup of tea in an apartment I earned, doing work I actually love. The weight vanished. It was finally gone. I didn't send that email to hurt them. I wrote it so I would stop hurting myself. Aunt Ruth kept me in the loop. She claimed she tried not to enjoy the drama, but she's a terrible liar. Margaret Caldwell called Diane that very same afternoon. Ruth dropped the truth. The conversation leaked to Ruth by a mutual friend who was visiting Margaret's house when the call hit. Went exactly as you'd expect. You lied to us. Diane. Margaret's voice stayed calm. Not loud. The Caldwells never do loud. You told us you had one daughter. We welcomed your family based on pure trust. That trust is shattered. Diane scrambled for an excuse. It was a private matter. Athena and I have been estranged. Estranged, Ruth, says your daughter. Signed every contract for this wedding. That is not estranged. That is exploited. Margaret told Diane the Caldwells would not pay the $38,000. That is between you and your vendors. We didn't sign those papers. Apparently. Neither did you. Garrett confronted Brooke that night. Ruth got the scoop from Garrett's cousin, who heard it through the Caldwell grapevine. Because Cedar Bluff has exactly one grapevine, and everyone is talking about it. You have a sister, Garrett snapped. An actual sister. She paid for our entire wedding, and your mother kicked her out, Brooke cried. It is complicated. Bob. It is not complicated. Brooke. It is a lie. Your family lied to mine on our wedding day. The newlyweds' first real fight erupted 4 days into the marriage. Over a sister the groom never knew existed, and a bill neither of them could actually afford. Brooke and Garrett ended up taking out a personal loan for $38,000. The Caldwells co-signed. Not out of generosity, but because their name was on the event, and they feared the vendors coming after them. Their fairy tale wedding now carried a heavy monthly payment. Cedar Bluff is the kind of town where everyone knows your business by Tuesday and has a nasty opinion about it by Wednesday. By the following week, the story had ripped through the Baptist church, the diner on Main Street, the local PTA, and every auto dealership waiting room in town. The details shifted slightly with each retelling, the way rumors always do, but the core stayed the same. Diane Sinclair hid her eldest daughter, barred her from the wedding, and then sent her the bill. Bev Henderson, Diane's neighbor of 19 years, cornered her in the church parking lot after the service. Diane, I had no idea you had 2 girls. How come I have never met your older daughter? Diane scrambled for the script she had been rehearsing. Athena lives overseas. We are not as close as I wish. It is a painful topic. Bev gave a slow nod. Ruth tells it a little differently. Diane stopped going to that church. She switched to the Methodist, 2 towns over, where nobody knew the Sinclair name at all. Frank became quiet, even quieter than usual, which is really saying something. He quit visiting the hardware store on Saturdays and stopped sitting on the porch every evening. The few neighbors who saw him said he looked like a man carrying a burden he could never put down. Diane blamed Ruth, calling her one morning with a shaking voice. You destroyed my family. Ruth's response, as she told me later, was simple. I did not expose you. Diane, I just stopped covering for you. Diane hung up, adding Ruth to the growing list of relatives she refused to speak to. That list was expanding, and the life Diane had spent years building the image of a devoted mother with a perfect, happy family was falling apart. Not because anyone attacked her. It collapsed because someone finally spoke the truth. 2 weeks after the wedding, Allons. Rambling text came from Brooke. I could almost hear her sobbing while she typed it out. Athena, I am so sorry for everything. It spiraled out of control. I did not know Mom would say those things to the Caldwells. I swear, Garrett is furious with me. His parents barely look at me. The loan payments start next month, and we're already behind on the apartment rent. The deposit. I know this is a huge ask, but could you cover some of the balance? Half I will pay you back. I promise. You're my sister. I love you. And I honestly just need help right now. I read it at my desk during lunch. Read it again. Then a third time, searching for something specific, an apology for turning me away. Some sign she knew and did nothing. A single sentence that said, "What happened to you at the door was wrong." Just that. It wasn't there. The whole message was about Brooke's problems, Garrett's mood, the loan, the apartment, the cold treatment from the Caldwells, my pain, not mentioned once. A crisis update disguised as an apology. She apologized for the mess, not the wound. There is a difference. I typed my reply carefully. Brooke, I am sorry you are dealing with this. I really am. But I cannot help financially. The boundary I set is not about money. It is about being treated like family. Real family. Not the kind you erase when it gets inconvenient, when you are ready to talk about that and not invoices. I am here. I hit send, tossed my phone in the drawer, and got back to work. She did not respond. Not that day. Not that week. I wasn't surprised. She never knew what to do with me when I wasn't her. Something. A month after the wedding, an email from Frank. My father never emails. He calls once in a blue moon, and when he does, it is about the weather or the Titans' defensive line. He has never, in my 34 years of life, written anything longer than a birthday card. So, seeing his name in my inbox with, seeing that subject line from Dad, I bolted upright in my chair. Athena. I know I should have spoken up that day at the barn. I didn't. I just stood there like a statue while your mother handled everything. I stayed silent. I have no excuse. I was a coward. That is the truth. Your mother and I are settling the invoice with the vendors. We don't need your money. I am writing because I needed you to know I am sorry. I should have walked you inside. That stays with me. Dad. I read it 5 times. I read it at my desk, on the subway home, and once more alone on my couch with the lights off. It wasn't perfect. It didn't fix anything. He never confronted Diane. He didn't demand she apologize. He didn't explain why he spent decades picking peace over his own daughter. But it was honest, the first honest thing anyone in my family has said since this started. I didn't reply right away. I needed space. A week later, I sent a response. Dad. Thank you. That means more than you know. I am not ready to come home or to pretend that things are fine. But I read your email, and I will keep reading it. Athena. Short. Careful. Leaving the door cracked open, just 1 inch. Not wide enough to walk through. But not locked either. He never wrote back. I didn't expect him to. But he said his piece, and I heard him. 6 months have passed since that Saturday at the Meadow Creek barn. I finally got that promotion. Senior software engineer at the fintech firm. I have been there for 4 years. My boss praised my leadership under pressure during the review. She has no idea. Not even half of it. I started therapy. Not because of the wedding, but because of the 34 years before it. We are unpacking something she calls functional over-responsibility. The lie that if I perform well, enough, sacrifice enough, carry enough, the people I love will finally notice me. It was the fuel behind every check I wrote, every flight I booked, every time I said fine when I actually meant this hurts. I video call Aunt Ruth every other Sunday. She makes coffee. I make tea. And we chat for an hour about everything and nothing at all. She updates me on Cedar Bluff. Not to gossip, but so I am not blindsided. Diane and Frank paid off $12,000 of the $38,000. They drained their retirement savings. The rest is on the loan Brooke and Garrett took out. Those monthly payments are a constant source of tension in the Caldwell-Sinclair household. Garrett's parents are civil but ice cold. Margaret still will not forgive Diane. Brooke and Garrett are still married. Ruth says they are in counseling. She says Garrett is a decent man who is trying. But the foundation cracked on day one, and cracks like that do not seal easily. Diane has not called, has not emailed, has not sent even a single text. Ruth says she refers to the entire situation as my little tantrum. I guess that is easier than calling it what it really is. I do not hate my mother. I have spent years in therapy just to be sure of that. But I have quit pretending that her specific brand of love did not hurt. It really did. And playing along was killing me slowly. One legal contract at a time. I am not sharing this so you will despise my mother. She is just flawed. She is terrified. She crafted a fake perfect family because the reality just felt like it was not enough. And somewhere along the line, I became the piece that did not fit the frame. That is not an excuse. It is just what happened. And I think growing up means finally accepting that the people who raised you are just human beings stumbling through their own private fears and their own failures. But I am telling you this because maybe you are living a version of this life. Maybe you are the one flying 18 hours. Literally or metaphorically. To show up for people who will not even hold the door open for you. Maybe you are the one signing those contracts. Covering the bills. Absorbing the cold silence. And calling it love just because you have nothing else to call it. I did that for a long time. I called it duty. I called it family. I called it being the bigger person. And every time I wrote a check or swallowed an insult or pretended that empty chair at the table did not bother me, I lost another piece of myself. A boundary is not punishment. It is not revenge. It is not a weapon. A boundary is the exact moment you say, I am worth more than this. And then you act like it. $38,000. That is what my freedom cost. And I do not regret a single cent. I kept. If you are always the one paying emotionally, financially, even spiritually for a seat at a table that was never meant for you, maybe it is time to build your own table and take the head of Partiously Prossen and Prossen it. I did not lose my family that day at Meadow Creek Barn. I found myself. And honestly, she was worth every ounce of weight. Thanks for sticking around until the end of this. It really means a lot. Let me ask you this. If you were in my shoes, would you have paid $38,000? Or would you have finally drawn the line? Comment, pay, or boundary below to let me know. I will be reading every single response. If this story sparks something real inside you, hit like and subscribe. I share stories like this every week about family, setting boundaries, and finding your voice when the people closest to you try to shut you down. And if you want more, check the description for another story I think you will connect with. For years, I kept mistaking payment for belonging. Every transfer, every flight, every favor felt like another chair I was buying at the family table. But a chair that must be purchased again and again was never truly mine. The invitation I waited for was not printed on paper. It was supposed to be shown in honesty, in respect, and in the simple courage to say, she is my daughter too. That wedding taught me that love cannot be charged to someone's card while their name is erased from the room. Family should never be a performance where one person pays backstage and is hidden before the curtain rises. If people need your money but are ashamed of your presence, the problem is not your absence. It is their dishonesty. And sometimes the most honest thing you can do is stop funding the lie that keeps you invisible. See you in the next one. Author Nguyen Van Chien.